Hey guys, this is the second part of the series and we've already set up the theme and dark mode feature for our application in the first part. In this video, we're going to create a task list application with React Context API for global state. So let's start coding. At first, we're going to create a new folder named hooks and we're going to create the global state.js file here, and this file really will have the global state for our application. So at first, let's import a few things from React. Those will be React, the create context, and the use state. Okay, these are the three things that we'll require in this file, and I've imported them. Now let's create the global context. Let's create the global context. Okay, so and the global context will really be the create context with we'll be initializing that with an empty object, and next will be our global provider that will be wrapping up our whole application or the demo component to be exact. Okay, and that will take the props, and will this is the really the format that we have to use for our global provider, that is global context provider, and we're going to render all the children inside this. Okay, and now we'll be adding the value to our global provider, and that will be the context value. Okay, so this is the context value, but we haven't created that. Okay, let's create the context value now. So this context value will have the task list at first. Okay, this is the task list. Okay, we haven't created that also, so let's create that. So this task list will be initializing it with an empty array. So our task list will be really an array of objects. Okay, and each of the object will be a task with id, text, and then status called completed. Okay, now let's create the actions for our task list. So first will be the add task, that will take the task and simply add it using the set task list. Okay, so we are just adding the task here. Task next will be the remove task, that will be able to use to delete the task, and it will take the task id or the id. Okay, and we'll be using the filter function of array, and uh, to filter out the the task with the id that has been given. Okay, so we'll be using the filter function. So task list dot filter, and task such that task dot id is not equal to id. Okay, so we'll be only keeping those tasks that's whose id does not match with the id that has been uh, sent to the remove task. Okay, and we'll be setting the task list with the new task list. Simple. So last one will be the update task, that will take the task really, because we need the id as well as the text to update the task. And we'll be using the map function now because we want to transpose the current array to a new one. So the new task list will be task list dot map, task list dot map, and take the previous task, and we'll check if task list if task list dot if task dot id is exactly equal to previous task dot id, then update it to task. Otherwise, don't update it, keep it the same. Okay, and we'll just set the task list to new task list. That's all we got to do, and we have already created all the actions. Now we'll be adding all the actions to the context value, and we have added all the actions. Now this is done, global state is done. Now we just have to wrap up our demo component with the global provider, and this is done. Now we'll be able to use all the uh, actions and the task list in the whole application without any problem. Now we'll go to the demo component, and we are going to render the task list below the divider. So let's create the first a container folder. So this is the standard format that we use in real-time application. And inside the containers folder, we have created the index.js, the outer index.js, so that we'll be able to export. And inside also the task list folder, inside which we'll create two file, index.js for our task list component, and styles.js, of course, for the styles. We'll create a separate file, and we'll be copying all the styles for now. You can check these are the simple styles. Okay, you can simply understand the style is for only container and the add button. Just rnfe, and we'll be creating the task list component here. And yeah, this is we've created the task list component here. And now we'll just export the task list to the, but before that, let's just import the styles file. Okay, and now we have imported the styles file here. And let's go to the outer index.js and export the task list here also, so that we'll be able to use it directly in our other files. So yes, this is done. So as you can see, and now we'll render the task list here, and this is imported simply from the containers directly. Okay, this is quite visible that task list is a container. Okay, and yeah, this is really great. So that's how you can just standardize everything. And now we'll be creating the task list component. Of course, we're going to use the vertical stack from Nativebase or vstack. And we'll be yeah, importing the text from the native base also. We'll be importing that also. And now let's add the style, that is styles.container. We've already added that. And now we'll be adding the task card. Okay, so for that we've created the task card component and index.js. Let's go rnfe, and now this is task card. Okay, tskcrd. Okay, and we'll be rendering it inside the task list first. Let's check if it works correctly. We'll be exporting it here also, of course, so that it is easier. And this is task card. Okay, so default export default is task card. From task card, this is done. Now we'll be um, rendering it here inside the task list rather than the text. We'll just render the task card, and we've imported it simply from the componency. Quite easy, right? And the task card is rendering. Great. So this is working well. Now what shall we do? Let's create the task card properly with native base components. So the task card will be pressable because we want to update the task card when we click on it. Okay, now let's add that a stack, because our it will be an horizontal stack, and we have added the styles for that. So these are the styles that worked well, so you can check this. And we have to add the bg color using the color mode, as we have done earlier. So for that we have to import the use color mode from native base and use the color mode from it. And use color mode here, const color mode equal to use color mode from native base. Okay, so after we did this, now we'll be able to create the bg color based on the color mode. If it is dark, then one color; if it is light, then another color. Okay, so based on the color mode, if color mode is equal to dark, then this color primary dot 800, otherwise primary dot 200. Okay, so this is it. Now let's we want another 8 stack inside this 8 stack to where our checkbox and text will be there. Okay, and we need some basic styles inside it. Say space between the checkbox and text should be 2. So these are the basic styles. Align items equal to center, so that our text and checkbox are aligned center by vertically they are aligned center. And our max weight will be 80%, so that there will be some space for our delete button. So this is the checkbox, and this is at first we'll just render it and check if it's working well. So this is the accessibility level that is required. This property is required so that our checkbox doesn't give any warning. It's suggested by Nativebase. And then the text. Okay, in this text our task name will be rendered. Okay, so let's just keep it static for now, and it works. Okay, now we'll be adding the icon button, and we can just directly use the native base icons and import them. For now, these are the few icons that you can use. The close icon, as you can see, it's working. Now we'll be adding a few styles for them so that it works well here. So we have added the styles here. As you can see, it's working quite nice. So this is working now. Now as you can see, it's working fine, and our button is pressable, but we haven't added any functionality till now to it, so it's not working. Now let's go to task list and create the add button. Okay, we are going to create the add button now, and we've already created the styles for it, so let's just add it. Now inside that, it will be an icon button, of course, just like earlier. We've created the icon, we added the icon button, and on press it will be a set model to true. Okay, on press the model will come up. Okay, we have to create the state for that, of course. So model set model equal to use state, and the initial state will be false, and we have to import the use state, of course, from React. Yes, we've imported that. Now let's okay, on press it will import. Now let's add the icon here, and that will be the add icon from Nativebase, of course. So there are a few icons like add icon, close icon, chevron left, chevron right. So you can check these icons, you can directly use them in your application if you are using Nativebase. So when we have added a few styles also, and this icon bg, this bg color will be based on, of course, color mode as before. So we're going to use the color mode from Nativebase, and based on the color mode, we are going to change the color of the icon background. So this is so if the color mode equal to dark, then this color, otherwise it will be this color. Okay, so but it's not working for some reason. So, and that reason is I think the color mode. Yes, there is a typo with the color mode. Yeah, so now it's working quite nice. As you now it's working quite nice, and it looks great. Okay, now let's create the model. Okay, we should create the model now. So this model will pop up in the middle of our screen, and with a backdrop, of course. Let's and this is the proper these are the properties. You can check the native base documents for this one. So this model is will be open when our model is set to true, and it will be closed when our model is set to false. Okay, and on model close will render this, will run this function. Let's create this function. On close, handle close model, and inside this there will be a form, right? There will be a simple form, and we are going to add a size also, size equal to lg. There are several sizes that you can check from the native base docs, and inside this there will be a form. Okay, there will be a form which will have the input. So let's create a separate component for that, and it will contain an index.js file, rnfe, and this will be form model. Export it from our outer index.js file, and this is form model and default as form model. Okay, so this is our form model done, and now let's render the form model in our model, inside our model. That's yes, so we have to import it from the components file, correct? And it's imported now. Yeah. Okay. So now let's see the native base documents, and we'll copy this and we'll edit this. And we'll edit this by taking it from the native base docs and just paste it here in the form model. And we have to import this, of course. So let's import all these things that we'll require, the import, and we don't need the button group, so let's remove the button group because we'll only need one button. So remove the other one as well, and let's remove this also and just look have a look at it if it works well. Okay, so we'll not need the second input also. We don't need this also. Let's just add this in the header, task for today. Yeah, this works great. Task for today, and we'll remove this and let's just check. Okay, great, it works well. Just there's a need of change of the style. Okay, so we don't think the max width is required, I don't think so. So let's remove that. If button flex equal to 1, let's try that. Let's try button flex equal to 1, and this works great. Okay, this looks great. Model looks great. Now we've removed everything we've imported from React Native. Now let's go to the task list and create the local task. Okay, local task state. This will be an object. So this object will have an initial state, right? So let's create the initial state. That will be id is null. Id will be null at first, and text will be empty string, and our completed status will be false. Yes, this will be our initial state. Now let's yeah, set it to task. So the initial state of the task will be initial state, and now let's send the task to our form model. Now let's create the handle task function, the submit task function that will require, and we'll send this also, the handle task equal to handle task, and submit task equal to submit task. So handle task will be using to update the task text, and submit task will be used to submit the task. So let's use all these things. So first task, and then so handle task, and comma submit task. Okay, so all these three things have been so we'll be able to use all these three here now. So the input will be having a value of task dot text, and on change text it will call the handle task function. Okay, and next the button on press will be calling the submit task function, and that is it for this one, I think. And form model will work. Now let's go to task list and just handle task will take the input value from the input component, and then we'll be able to use this input value to set the task. But first we need a task id. Okay, and this is the task id based on which we can differentiate between the tasks. So if the task.id is present, then we'll keep the task.id. Otherwise we'll create the new task id named that will be date.now. So this is normally we use for creating an id if we are not using a separate library. So Now we'll be adding that set task id equal to task id, and text will be the input value. And now let's completed as would be false for now. Yeah, at the starting the completed will be false because we are just creating the task, right? And now let's create the submit function, so this will just submit. So let's we have to add the task, right? So let's just import this from the context, global context value. So we'll be using the use context hook from React. So there'll be add task, update task, remove task, and the task list. Okay, and global task list. So we'll be using the use context and using the value global context. Okay, so we'll import the use context now, and we imported that. And let's see, yeah, it works great. So we've imported this all. Now let's call the function add task and send the task to it. Okay, now this is done. Okay, now we'll be able to add the task, but before that let's create the flat list component, so that we'll be able to render all the tasks um using the task card. So this will be our flat list. It will be having the data as task list, the global task list, and the key will be item.id, right? So that's what we are doing here. Next, the render item that will render will be the task card, right? So it will take each of the item inside the task list and will be rendering the task card based on that. And we'll send the item first, of course. So as props we need that item to render. So set task is second, and set model is third. And I think that will be all that we'll require for now. Let's check if we'll. Okay, we also will set the show vertical scroll indicator to false, so that there's no scroll there. Okay, similarly you can also do it for horizontal. Now let's try adding a task, and it seems to be working, but we're not we're not setting the model as false. So let's set that in the handle close model. And we'll also be setting the task to initial state also. Okay, so task 2 done, and you can see in the background that the task has been added. And but we're not calling the handle close model. Okay, so we'll do that. And now task 1412, and okay, this is working, but we're not rendering our tasks. Okay, so let's render what we have added in the task card. We'll take the item, and we'll be rendering the item.text in the text component, and you can see it's working great. We have the add task is working. Now we'll be adding the properties to the checkbox. So the first property will be is checked. That will define if our task is completed or not. So is checked equal to item that completed, and on changing the checkbox, we'll call the function, and that function will be, let's name the function as handle completed task maybe, or handle completed item. Let's name the let's name the function as handle completed item, and we'll send the item using that. And yes, here, and we'll be creating the, and let's create the handle completed item function here. So it will take the item, and we'll be sending it as props in the task card. Now let's go to the task card and just add the on press property. So on press on we when we press the task card, then we'll call the function handle task card pressed, and it will take the item, of course, so that we'll be able to update the item. So we'll start it here, and then we have to create it in the task list also. We haven't created it. So const handle task card pressed, it will take item, and let's do the rest later. First, the icon button will also have a on press property, and on press it will handle delete here. That will be the cross button at the right side of our task card, and on press will create the we haven't created the handle delete also. So let's name the function as handle delete task. So on press, the icon button will be able to delete, and it will take the item.id. So we are sending the id to the handle delete task function, and it will be used to delete the task. And handle handle delete task will take the id of the task, and we'll be able to call the remove task function using that later. um, Now let's do the functionality of the handle delete task. So we'll be adding the remove task function that we have already got from the global state, and the handle task card pressed will set the task to the item, so that we'll be able to update that item, and it will set the model as true. So the model will come up with the item, and we'll be able to update it. Okay. But when we are updating the task, then we have to create another state for that, because there will be two states, updating or not updating. So when we're updating, then it will go to the update task function, and we are not updating, then it will go to the add task function. Okay. So for that, we are creating a local state is updating, and stat is updating, and will use state, and it will have the initial state as false. And let's let's set this is updating to true when we press the card. And of course, after submitting the task, will set is updating to false, so that we will be able to add the task again if we want, rather than updating the task every single time. So set is updating false, and that's of course of when we are submitting, then we need to check is updating true, then update task with the task, of course, otherwise add the task. Okay, just add the task. So based on the updating is updating state, we'll be able to update or add the task with the same function, with the same button. Okay. So this is all done. Now what shall we do? Let's add the functionality of the handle completed item. Okay. So const new status, of course, when we click on the checkbox, we need a new status that will not be the completed uh, status. Okay. And we'll create an updated item that will have all the properties that is already there, and will be adding the completed as new status, not the earlier status. Okay. So if it is completed, then it will be not completed. If it is not completed, then it will be completed. And we'll call the update task using that updated item. Now we should be okay. The remove task is not working function, because we have made a typo here, of course, yes. And okay, now it should work. Now it should work, and it's working great. Now we'll be able to add a task. Let's check. Okay, we are able to add a task, we are able to update the task completed, and we are able to update the task as well. And let's add another task, and it's working. Now we have reloaded the application, and let's check again. and if everything works white, and even after reloading, we are checking and it's working fine, but our dark mode is not working for the task cut for some reason, and the reason is again typo. Okay, now it's great. Okay, it looks great. Very good. So this is our application, and that's it.